Morning, everyone. Rich Brown here, AmeriEstate Legal Plan, Director of Operations, Client Services, and we're very, very pleased to welcome you. We're going to our Horror Stories and Dangers of Probate seminar. We got Tom Huster with us, and we'll get started in just a minute or two. We'll let some people join in. Little housekeeping. We're not going to take questions in this session, but what we will do is have you just load up your questions in the Q&A, and we'll get those answered give us your email address. We'll get those answered via email, or always feel free to call AmeriEstate with any inquiry whatsoever. We want to educate you and get your business. How are you today, Tom?
I'm doing fine, Rich. Thank you.
So here we go. Everybody, welcome. The Hidden Dangers of Probate and True Horror Stories of Not Having a Living Trust. And I'm Rich Brown, Client Services and Operations Manager at AmeriEstate Legal Plan. And we're very, very, very lucky to have with us today Mr. Tom Huster. Tom, welcome. Tom's been practicing law for 40 years or more, estate planning, trust, probate law. He uses his vast experience to help people with trusts and advance estate planning strategies. He very effectively handles wills, trusts, probate, estate litigation. How am I doing, Tom?
Thank you, Rich.
I think Tom,
you covered it.
You've seen everything 4 times over. I swear. Tom comes with incredible experience. We're really lucky to work with Tom. So here we go. What we're going to talk about today is the dangers of probate. When is probate necessary? How to avoid probate. You don't want it sprung on you. We're going to migrate that to a living trust, which is probate avoidance. We live, eat, breathe, sleep around here, probate avoidance. That's what we're all about. And we're going to come up with some examples of some horror stories out there. And what does probate cost? And who pays for all that? So with that, Tom, I think we're going to get started here. You got a couple of those horror stories we're referring to.
Sure. But I think I'll try to keep my comments in the scope of a single family with children and address that, and maybe talk about how things could go sideways from that standard situation where we have a family with 2 kids.
The average client.
Yes. So just as a very preliminary matter, we all should understand that probate is just a way to get property from this generation to the next generation. So from you to your children, unfortunately, you've died. And so you're not here to enjoy it, but you want the property, your home, whatever there is, to go to your children. So that's what probate is. It's one way to do that. And it is a very expensive way to do that, but that's what probate is.
So a person passes away. If they don't have a very specific discussion about who gets their stuff, here comes a legal proceeding to make that determination called probate. Very good, very good. You said if you have some examples of some people that got caught up in probate, which could have otherwise been avoided?
Well, the way it comes up is you have passed away and your children now say, let's get mom and dad's house on the market. It's worth a lot of money because we're in California, and let's get it sold. And then a real estate broker, somebody steps forward and says, you can't sell that house. You need the approval of the probate court to do that. And if your kids are lucky, they say, well, no, we don't. Mom and dad set up a trust for us, so we don't have to go through probate. That's how it comes up typically.
So how do I determine? My folks have just passed away. where do I begin to determine if I'm going to probate or if I can avoid probate? What am I looking for?
Well, let's say your parents didn't talk to you and they didn't tell you anything. And so you have to go over to their house and you have to start looking around. And what you're looking for and hoping to find, now these are your parents who died, you're looking for their estate plan. You're looking for their trust. And you're hoping you find a trust, but you may not find anything, in which event you're going to have a probate, or you may find a will, in which event you'll also have a probate.
Okay, that's very important. So sure, my folks got a will. Fantastic. I'm still going to probate, you say?
You are.
Okay.
Yeah. A will puts you into probate and the court probates that will. They take the will through the steps and they get your house transferred to your children a year or two later.
So we always say, do I need to go to probate? We always say, well, contact AmeriEstate. We can guide you there anyway. But look at the real estate deed. Does it reference a trust? Does it not reference a trust? And because that's the key asset that's subject to probate, isn't that correct? I mean, maybe some of those other assets that are a small bank account, checking, savings, and the like can be under a hog line for an element of probate, but it's that real estate, right, Tom?
That's the key, because you can't do a beneficiary designation for your house, but you can do that for your 401k. You have to. You can do that for your IRA. But for your real estate, you have to think of another way to get it to your children.
So you check the real estate deed from your folks' home that just passed away, and the greatest news you could find is that it's referenced that it's owned by some kind of living trust. But if it's not, and
That's
if it's
right.
the folks' name, it's a one-way ticket to probate, and that's a call to AmeriEstate and a probate attorney, and that's that whole proceeding. Expensive, you said, time consuming, but how does that get started? How would I get started? So I've determined that my folks' estate is subject to probate. What do I do next?
So you found a will in the closet and it basically says mom and dad is joint tenants. They both died. Now whoever died last owns the house. And now we have to get it to your children. So you're going to consult an attorney who is going to tell you, here's how we commence the probate process. It's a legal pleading. You theoretically can do it yourself, but it's not amenable to self-help. So you're going to hire a lawyer. The lawyer is going to get a fee for the probate, and the fee is going to be around 3%. And you may have to get a separate executor. Maybe you can be the executor, but if you have to get a separate executor, like if Wells Fargo is named in a will, then you're going to have a total of 6%. So $1 million estate, what's 6% of that? I think it's around $60,000.
Who pays that, Tom?
You do. You do. Who do you think?
Well, kids don't come out of pocket, right? I mean,
you could pay at the end.
Okay, but that comes off the top of the estate. So, otherwise could have been avoided. That's just more distribution, but those fees are coming right out of the estate, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think of a way, there's a lot of things wrong with probate for the average family. It's great for some people, but it's bad for most of us. And just think expense. That's, it's like the real estate broker tells you it's location. So probate is expense. And it's going to go to guys like me, the lawyers who can do it, or the banks that work as executors in that field. The revocable trust is much cheaper, and I mean much.
So you said I dug up a will from my parents in the closet. What if there is no will?
Oh, you're going to have an intestate situation. Intestate means there is no will. It's just another word for that. And then you have to have a probate to get the property to the right people. This is where probate's really valuable because, you know, your parents were remiss. They didn't say what they wanted to happen. And now the law is going to take over and it's going to make sure the right people get the property. So that's good.
That's a distribution hierarchy by state. So each state has its own distribution hierarchy in an intestate situation, meaning no will, no trust.
Yeah, it's usually your kids.
Okay.
So it's not a disaster. Nobody takes them. But if you don't have any kids, then who could it be? It could be your cousins or, you know, it is a hierarchy. It's like a tree. You go up through your parents, then your grandparents, and then out through your cousins, then your second cousins, but it's not pretty.
And how does that trust you're talking about allow us to skip the probate proceeding?
Well, that's beautiful. The trust lets you say, I want my estate to go to my 3 children. And then it gets divided 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And you've designated who's getting it. And not only that, you've controlled the process. And you've said, and I want my 3 children to be co-executors, co-trustees. We want them to be co-trustees. So then you've designated who's going to run it. And nobody is looking over their shoulder. There are laws that apply. They have to treat each other fairly. They have to do what you said, but nobody's looking and saying, hey, you got to file this, you got to file that. Let's make sure you're doing it right. That's what happens in probate. I hope that's clear. I'm not sure. You know, Rich, do you think I covered that? It's
yes. So the evils of probate, expensive, takes a long time. You lose control. It's public record, right, Tom?
It is public record.
So no privacy. So okay, now we evolve and you say, oh, my folks got it handled. We got a will. Will's still subject to probate. We're back to that. So we want to take it to the next level. We want to get you into a living trust portfolio, trust will. We also give you a will, powers of attorney, and assets in a trust are not subject to probate. And you also get an opportunity to name the beneficiary structure, and you get an opportunity to name the administrative structure, right? So you're in control, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And, you know, we've done this with Tom for what, 10 years, Tom? I think we calculated something like 2,500 cases we've done with you. I mean, you have seen everything under the sun. And what I most like about Tom is clients can come in with the most complex situation in their own minds for their distribution. Boy, spend 10 minutes with Tom and he simplifies it, you know, to one line item. And, you know, Tom, that's what I think is one of your best skills is you can figure out a complex situation and really reduce it to something very, very simple, which, you know, we like simple, don't we?
Well, we do, but the truth is most trusts that I do, or I think that any lawyer or an entity like AmeriEstate does, are pretty straightforward. It's like, when I die, I want everything to go to my beautiful wife. And when she dies, what I would like it to go in equal shares to my 3 children. And that AmeriEstate Trust is perfect for that. It can do almost everything else. You know, John Rockefeller's not going to come in and set up his foundations. But for normal people in California who own a house, $500,000, it's tough to find one for less than that in this state, you know, and in the Bay Area where I live, they're all $1 million if you're lucky. For that kind of an estate, the revocable trust is a great product. I'll just add this. Let me interrupt you.
Oh.
I have work with AmeriEstate. I don't work for them. I work
Correct.
with them and I'm totally independent. But we've never had a trust fail, as far as I know. We've never had a trust that somebody came in and said, hey, this trust isn't valid. This trust doesn't work for one reason or another. Now, we have had it once or twice, beneficiaries fighting. That can happen.
Sure, yes.
Now, beneficiaries can say, hey, that's not what mom and dad really wanted. I know what they really wanted. They wanted everything to go to me. That's the typical context.
Right.
That's
So
very rare.
one of the kids gets carved out and says, well, this isn't right. That's not what my parents wanted. But the parents took the time to engage AmeriEstate. We set them up with Tom Huster. Tom, discussed the parameters of the estate plan with them, documented it, signed it, notarized it. Good luck for that kid to pierce that trust. Because everything in the background has reaffirmed what those folks want.
Yeah, it's tough to pierce.
Hey, say Tom, so we get this trust, and boy, folks forgot to fund a property. They bought a piece of real estate and just it skipped their mind, didn't fund it to the trust. What happens to that property, Tom?
Well,
Not a trust asset.
So there's a couple of steps here in your revocable trust. Number one, you have to adopt it. So you adopt a trust. You do that by having a form trust and you sign it. And you sign it with a formality. You have a notary acknowledge your signature. So later on, when you're gone, people know it was really you and not somebody else posing as you. So then you have to fund it. You have to take the step of putting your property into the trust. It's like the trust is now a bucket and we're going to put maybe all, maybe most, maybe a lot, maybe just your house in the trust. And so that's a key step.
So funding, critical. And we get that here a lot, that clients forgot to, or a story I'd like to share is you go to refi your property, the bank says we have to take it out of this trust to complete the refi, gets it all done, but never alerts you to the most important step. Go back to AmeriEstate and get that property retitled back into your trust. Otherwise, you're going to cause all this extra administration when you pass away because it's not a trust asset. But we also give you a pour-over will. We give you a will, and we make the beneficiary of that will your living trust, so that everybody in the world sees, oh, the idea was for my trust to control all of this. Be it a trust asset or not. We give you a pour-over will that points everything to the trust. We give you a blanket a blanket assignment that you sign. I assign all my personal property, furnishings, fixtures, everything to the trust. So we do as many levels as we can to tell the world this trust controls my affairs after I pass away.
We've saved a couple of trusts that way where
you had a story, the police story about where they forgot to fund.
Well, this is a true story, and this involves a friend of mine, considerably younger, but he was a San Francisco policeman. They're high earners. They get a very good salary. And he was single, but he had a girlfriend, and he inherited his parents' house, and he bought a set of flats in San Francisco. That's a big ticket item. And I did his trust, and I would say it was very good. It was a very good trust. But he bought a third piece of property over in Benicia. That's a suburb. It was once the capital of California. It's on the Sacramento River. And Benicia, and he bought it. He paid about $500,000, kind of a summer house. And he didn't tell me. And he died very unexpectedly about 3 months after he died. So that's, that property was not, he didn't get it into his trust. He didn't say, hey, Tom, I'm buying property in Benicia. Let's make sure it's in the trust. In fact, he never said a word to me, so I didn't know. And then he died. And then going over his estate and his assets with his girlfriend who's in charge of everything, is getting everything through the trust except Benicia. And I give her the bad news. Well, we got to run that through probate. We have to use the pour over will, like Rich said, and pour it over into the trust. That unfortunately is a probate process. So that was bad enough. So that house had a big probate cost, a percentage. I waived a lot of my fee, and you can do that, but I dare you to find a lawyer who's going to waive his fee.
Yes, yeah.
This guy was a close friend of mine. And to make it even worse, he only put 10,000, he only put 10% down. So what's that, on $500,000? He put down 50,000. So he really only had equity of 50,000 because that's what he used to buy the property. But for probate costs, you use the gross value. You can't subtract the mortgage.
I've always found that to be so interesting that, I can have a $500,000 home, owe $499,000 on it, have $1,000 in equity, but when it goes to probate, they're gonna take what, 6 to 8% of the gross value, right?
Well, I can tell you why, Rich, because probate's not all about you. You've passed away, and now we have your heirs. But the poor lawyer, think about it, he's got to do just as much work on that probate if it has a
Sure.
No loan or
Right.
100% loan. The legal work is the same. That's why.
I wanted to inject
Don't make me defend that at a cocktail party. But
I get calls all the time that hey, I just bought another piece of real estate, and AmeriEstate, I need you to do the deed to help me transfer that title to my trust. And we say, well, gee, you could have had escrow close that deal right in the name of the trust and avoid that step. So, if you do have that existing trust, remember, when you open a new asset, close an asset, buy a new piece of property, think about titling it in the trust right out of the chute. And then, you avoid potentially overlooking that situation that you just described. So again, we very much encourage you to call AmeriEstate to talk about the need for a trust. And by the way, it's a trust portfolio. We give you the trust, we give you the will, we give you powers of attorney that preclude conservatorship proceedings in the future in the event of incapacity. We engage you with Tom, and Tom sorts out all the estate plan you need here. Let's see here. You had another story you wanted to share with us, Tom, the young couple?
well, that's kind of what we've been talking about. That's the couple that's 40 years old and they have 2 children. That's why they need a trust. But not only them, but their parents. I don't know quite how to bring this up in my own personal life, but if you are going to be the beneficiary of a piece of real estate in California that your parents hold title to, you might think of how to mention to them that they might like to put it in a trust. I'm not.
I'm so glad you brought that up. One of the best gifts a parent can give to a child, but doggone it, that child, might be time to poke the parent and say, I heard about these trusts, have you folks entertained that? And turn them on to AmeriEstate. We would be pleased, and we pride ourselves on education here. There's folks out there that'll give you a pile of paper, sign here, notarize here. Congratulations, have a nice day. We want you to understand all the pieces of your portfolio and what they accomplish and how they accomplish that, and how to use those documents in the future when it becomes necessary.
Well, I'll say one other thing. There are a lot of, what do you call them, entities or programs where you can do your own will or your own estate plan. So just be a little careful. I'm not saying they're all horrible. I personally know a situation where one failed because of failure to follow the proper procedure for signing a will. A will takes least two witnesses and they have to be in each other's presence. And there's kind of a magic statement, but it's no big deal. If you do it right, you'll probably do it right by accident. But the lady that had come to me and then had decided she could do it herself, didn't tell me. She went and wrote a will. She had 3 sons. She left everything to her favorite son, and she didn't get it witnessed properly, and the will failed. So I was glad it failed because I like to see kids treated equally, and I didn't like that she was going to favor her own kid, but I'll do what a client wants. It's your kids and it's your money, and it's not for me to tell you how to run your life. But that's an example. It didn't, what she wanted didn't happen, and her estate went 3 ways. She was a school teacher over in Berkeley. You were a very smart lady.
We insist that an attorney is involved in every estate plan when you come through AmeriEstate, and that's to set it up correctly up front and to deal with it, ongoing maintenance, should it be necessary, changes, and so that's where we are thrilled to engage you with Mr. Tom Huster for peace of mind that the documents are done and done correctly. A cost. I was going to throw up a couple of share a screen here. And so, can everybody see that? I hope I got that right. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see that? So the total cost of, $500,000 home, some savings, a little bit of personal property. So here comes probate, $60,000. You could have saved that entire amount for a $2,000 trust with AmeriEstate. Sound correct, Tom?
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, you would have to work at it to run your probate costs up to, you'd have to have an attorney plus a separate executive, but yes, it is entirely possible. And I think it's gonna be 30,000 no matter what.
Right.
So that's a good estimate.
Am I sharing these screens correctly? I hope so.
I can see it.
Okay, which one do you have up there? The $29,000 one? I mean,
Yeah.
a little more modest estate, $300,000 home, a little bit of savings, some personal property. Our trust, plus or minus $2,000. Could have saved those kids, 30 grand. Hey, it's Mr. and Mrs. Client. I mean, sure, congratulations. It's not that new big screen TV you just spent a couple $1,000 on, but it sure is one of the best gifts you could ever give to your kids. And sure, you sign it, park it on a shelf, but that's it's just a wonderful tool for the kids and for you in the event of your incapacity. Avoid conservatorship proceedings, things like that. Let's see what we got here. You had the story out of Ireland, right, Tom?
Well, I don't think anybody will run into that, but that was a lady. I was a good friend of her cousin. So there's a lot of Irish people in San Francisco. And this guy was also a policeman. And he really took care of his cousin. She owned a set of flats in what we call the Sunset District. And those flats are all in the $1 million to $2 million range now. They didn't used to cost much. And he took me and I met her and I tried to explain estate planning to her. And she was really set in her ways and she wouldn't do it. She eventually died. And then, so the question was, who does her estate go to? Well, she was a widow. She had no children. She had, I think she had 11, I might be wrong, it might have been 12 first cousins, of which my friend was one of them. Now, she told me she wanted her estate to go to Joe. That was the cousin in America, because they've been buddies for a whole lifetime, but she couldn't bring herself to sign a document that said that. So Joe did get 1/12 if there were 12 cousins of that estate, and he did get the executor's commission. So he got to be her executor, as the closest relative. But the rest of it, the other 11 12s went back to Ireland to people I never knew, nobody knew, because to locate them, you went up. Her parents were, of course, dead. And then she was in her 80s. It then went up to her grandparents to figure out how to fan out. And it fanned out to a lot of people, and a lot of interesting names. But I think Joe wasn't very happy.
All could have been avoided with a living trust, right?
Yeah, I did get paid. The legal fees get paid. So I got the legal fees, but I wasn't very happy with the result.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And hey, wanted to kind of wrap it up. We're on our half hour here. Tom, thank you for that experience. And we encourage you folks to contact AmeriEstate. If you have a trust, talk about a trust review, trust maintenance. If you need a trust, I see questions in the Q&A. We look forward to responding to those. Thank you all very much for participating. Thank you, Tom, for your experience. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to.
Trusts over 10 years old have to be revised because of the changes in the tax law.
Good for you, Tom. Perfect, perfect. We encourage that call to AmeriEstate. We want to educate. We want to make sure your documents are in working order. And we really appreciate your time. And thanks for the visit. And Tom, we'll see you soon, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating.